In medicine around the world, not just in Sri Lanka, but anywhere around the world, women's health is always diminished and declined. When it comes to scientific research, they never do the research on the women, it's always on the men. But I think things are changing. I think people in their 20s, so like the Gen Zs, they're very different from maybe people a bit older. I think things are changing, and I think people are becoming more aware, and also the importance, I think people now realize that having a good sex life is such an important part of the marriage. And the woman has had loads of investigations, loads and laparoscopic procedures. They're put to sleep and a camera is put in their stomach. These are not small things. And had clomiphy, so much invasive, sometimes dangerous things done to her. And the man's semen has never once been checked. And then it really gets me angry. Say if I punch you, right? Say, I don't know, I punch you, Zara. And if I punch you like that and it hurts your arm, the next time you see my arm coming, what will you do? You move away, right? So it's exactly the same thing. It's called the cycle of pain. Same number of male problems is the same as female problems, It's not just always the woman, it's both of you.
Was it a lack of
passionate about these things?
Was it a lack of awareness, or the man doesn't just want to do it?
I think a bit of both.
Hi, welcome to another podcast with the founders. And today, Rushma and I are excited to meet Aysha Ziauddin, a doctor and a famous, I would say, influencer on Instagram concerning women's health, wellness. But what was so interesting about Aysha is that it was the first time I saw, well, to be honest, a hijabi Muslim woman doctor online talking about sexual health, actually saying the word vagina on camera. I was quite surprised by that, and I started following you for some time now, and I thought you would be a great guest on our show. So let's start. Aysha, please give us a brief introduction about who you are and how you came to start your Instagram handle, The Stranded Doctor.
Hi Zahra, hi Rashma. Thank you so much for inviting me and that very kind introduction. That's the first time I've been called an influencer before. So thank you very much. So how did it start? It actually started in 2021. I had just come back from the UK. I'd left Sri Lanka, the medical school at 18, done my postgraduate training, first in obstetrics and gynecology, then just before the end, before I became a consultant, I switched to family medicine. And I'd worked in the UK, and then we came back home. And we came back home during COVID. So I couldn't leave Sri Lanka to go back to England at all because of COVID, obviously. We were in lockdown. And I went to the SLMC to say, can I work here? I've done all this training, I took all my certificates. And they were like, we're so happy that you're back at a consultant level. We're so proud, we're so happy. So can I see patients? Oh, no, you can't do that. That you need SLMC registration. I was like, okay, I've got all my certificates. Can I do that? They're like, well, there's a new law that's going to be passed for people like you, but that may take, I don't know, depending on the parliament, depending on the government. So that'll take a long time. You better do this exam. And so that was the start. And so Stranded Doctor was the moniker my sister came up with, that I was stranded in Sri Lanka, couldn't work in England, couldn't work in Sri Lanka, so I was a stranded doctor. And the logo my cousin came up with, she came up with the uterus and the fallopian tubes being the stethoscope. So yeah, so it started. I didn't ever think it would, like looking back, I didn't think it would become what it's become, but yeah, alhamdulillah.
I think initially you started posting videos on women's sexual and reproductive health, right? You said family medicine, but why did you choose to focus on this particular branch of it? And what inspired you to do that?
So I did obstetrics and gynecology for a long time, so that's women's health. So I have my exams, my postgraduate exams in that speciality, and I've always been very passionate about women's health. So even when I did family medicine, 99% of my patients here are women. In England, obviously, it's different because you have half, but here it's 99% women. And I'm really passionate about it. And I think that in medicine around the world, not just in Sri Lanka, but anywhere around the world, women's health is always diminished and declined. When it comes to scientific research, they never do the research on the women, it's always on the men. If you look at things like menopausal health, contraceptive, there's not much money in it. It's all about men's health and how, what's good for a man. But generally, the research and money spent for women is a lot less.
And can you tell us the difference between sexual health and reproductive health? Like, is that the same thing, or is there an actual scientific
distinction?
Can you talk about that?
So generally, we put it together. So reproductive health just talks about a woman's and a man's health from the time of sort of puberty on to the end of their sort of reproductive journeys. And that's what reproductive health is. Sexual health obviously regards to sex, and again, like there are a lot of issues that men and women both face. So that's one of my special interests as well. So I've got extra qualifications in psychosexual medicine.
Okay. So just to understand a little, I just want to summarize something and clarify if I've understood this correctly, Aysha. So when you talk about reproductive health, mainly you're looking at the physical aspects of a body, and when you look at sexual health, you're talking about psychosocial aspects, or is it something like that, or mental health based work? Okay.
So reproductive health is generally everything. I said sexual is the sexual function. When I said psychosexual, that looks at generally sexual problems, but like vaginismus, low desire, erection problems, but there's always a psychological aspect to it. You can never separate sexual problems and psychological problems because they're always intertwined. So I've done psychosexual medicine, which looks at the intersection of that, those two elements.
That's very interesting. I want to know more about that. Usually, when we have reproductive health problems, you go to the doctor, he prescribes some medicine and stuff. It is not often that you talk about the mental aspect of it, right? So can you elaborate on how it affects performance or sexual health, or especially in Sri Lanka, why this could be relevant for many people and not addressed?
So this sort of thing is generally more when it comes to sex rather than, for example, painful periods. Painful periods is not a psychosexual problem per se. It's a problem. Women take time off work with period pain. It's very severe. So that is a massive thing. But when it comes to sexual problems, for example, a woman who has vaginismus is a very common condition. It's seen a lot in the Sri Lankan Muslim community, and also in families where your girls are taught from an early age to be girls, to not have sex before marriage. What happens?
Aysha, what is vaginismus for the people like us?
I do apologize. Vaginismus is a condition where there is the involuntary, so not under your control, contraction of the muscles surrounding the vagina, right? So it's not under your woman's control, and it's the tightening of the muscles surrounding the vagina. So if you think about it, the vagina is a passage. The things surrounding the passage become tight. So, it's like a column or something, and there are things squeezing the column on either side. And that's what vaginismus is. So it's very common in Sri Lanka in all communities, but it can be treated with psychosexual medicine. So you would look at why the woman feels that way, you look at where her beliefs are, what her core beliefs are, what she's been taught about sex growing up. And then also, for example, in the Muslim community, it's a massive problem where girls, and I'm a practicing Muslim, so where we don't touch a man, for people who don't know, in Muslim, women aren't allowed to even hold hands with a man until they have their nikah. So you go from not touching a man to them wanting to have sex with you on the first night. That can't happen. Yeah. And I'm not saying that you should touch somebody, but I would feel, I don't want the same for my child, but I'm not saying to do things before your nikah. What I'm saying is a man needs to realize that there needs to have time, there needs to be progression. It can't just be, you're never alone in a room with a man and then have sex. It can't work like that. And I think the men in the community need to realize, and the boys, when they get married, they need to be told by somebody, look, don't expect to get lucky the first night. You need to develop a relationship with your wife, you need to start things physical and then slowly build up to consummation. But I think in our community, as you guys know, that doesn't really happen. Girls are expected to consummate very soon, which is not really fair.
But
So
how
true,
many people
because
are
when
talking
I
about it?
work with, oh,
Do women come to you saying, I have this issue? Do they
So
come
many.
saying that, yeah?
So many. And it's not just Muslim women, it's women from all communities.
And when they
yeah,
come, they think it's like a physical issue, nothing to do with their psychological space.
Well, the reason you get it, right, it's like this. Say if I punch you, right? Say, I don't know, I punch you, Zara. And if I punch you like that and it hurts your arm, the next time you see my arm coming, what will you do? You move away, right? So it's exactly the same thing. It's called the cycle of pain. So when it hurts the first time, or when it hurts when they're trying, or you try too early, or when you're not aroused, or like I said in the situation when you haven't seen a man, you haven't held a man's hand, and then you have to have sex with him. Obviously, your body will think the next time you try to have sex again, it will think it's going to hurt, and you're going to contract. That's called, the phenomenon is a medical phenomenon, and it's called the cycle of pain. So it's trying to break that cycle, and that's what I do in therapy with these women. We try and break that cycle.
Yeah, and to add on to that, the persons that I see in my practice as well, I've seen so many who've experienced vaginismus, and the fact that the families or the advice that they take is about this is your wifely duty, it's okay, it's going to work out, you just need to power through it, it's your first time. So these are the things that I see in my practice, and it's so interesting and so nice to have you say, hey guys, hang on, this is gonna it's a transition, it's like anything, you've got child development through the lifespan, so it's like development through the sexual lifespan, and reproductive lifespan of someone, like how it grows. It's really, really nice to hear you and have you say that. And Zara and I are also very curious to find out, what is it from your experience you feel that we can do to raise this awareness? I mean, you're doing a great job as a professional and doing that, just as us being part of the society, part of the community.
But it's like you said, it's just explaining to people, to couples, that it may take time, and to normalize that. We have to normalize that, and I think it's really sad that we still, the people still look at bed sheets, which is ridiculous. And, and not just in the Muslim community, in all communities.
100%.
My friends who are, I remember my best friend who's not Muslim, her mother telling us to be good girls because she went to a homecoming and the sheet was on display. This was okay. This was a while ago. It was 20 years ago when I was a teenager. But still, we were brought up with that. We were brought up with that sort of fear of sex. But I want to advocate again, I'm not saying to have sex before marriage at all. I'm very strong that I feel that sex is sacred and should be in the confines of marriage. But, I think there needs to be a conversation with a couple about that. And the couple, I don't know who's giving the advice to men. For women, I know that before the wedding night, the aunties come and talk and whatever, but I don't know what happens on the other side. I don't know if that does happen with men. To my knowledge, I don't think men even talk much about these things. I think they should.
Interesting. To be honest, even I don't know what men talk about. But do you think there's when you started talking about these issues, there was this feeling of why are you bringing it up? It's like a taboo subject, or is there a fear that if you talk about it, it's like you said, you always add a disclaimer, I'm not supporting premarital sex every time you say it. So is that to confirm there when you start talking about this?
I think things are changing. I did a talk called feminine, about basically female sexual function. I can't remember. Discovering joy. That's what I called it, discovering joy. And I had some unmarried Muslim girls in abayas coming to learn before they got married, and I was like, wow. I being so into this space didn't do that before I got married. I went to a pre-marriage course, but I didn't go to a Discovering Joy sex course, but she had come to ask questions. And so I think things are changing. I think people in their 20s, so the Gen Zs, they're very different from maybe people a bit older. I think things are changing, and I think people are becoming more aware, and also the importance. I think people now realize that having a good sex life is such an important part of a marriage, and I think people are realizing that. I haven't had pushback yet. I don't know. I haven't. No one said it to me directly. But then I'm always very, I think it's because, like you guys pointed out, the disclaimers come in hard and fast.
So okay. You brought up a really interesting topic, the joy of sex. How do you put that forward? How do you kind of talk about that subject? Because I mean, in our society, be it Muslim or non-Muslim, it's seen as a duty, something that must be done. Like not something one enjoys. So how do you? What made you come up with that?
Well, for me, it came from religion. For me, it came from religion, like because the Prophet says, "Enter your wife until you give her an orgasm." Like that's in a hadith. So for me, there was, it's a part of my deen, and I think, they say it's a blessing from. For me, it was all about religion. Like it was a blessing from God, and then they say that an orgasm for your husband and your wife is a little bit of heaven on earth. So for me, that's what I've always said to the Muslim community. For the non-Muslim community, people are aware now. People, I think the whole thing of it needs to be a duty was maybe something there in the generation above. Most of my girlfriends who well, actually, most of my non-Muslim girlfriends is half-half. Some are very aware and are very, know what their rights in a relationship are when it comes to sex, while some others are maybe more busy in life and just do see it as a duty, but still do enjoy it. But I think the whole thing of lie back and think of England, I feel that has left the generation above. Well, in my practice, I hope it has.
I think this perception around the world, like you bringing in the deen, the Islam also into it, a lot of practitioners around the world, like Muslim practitioners around the world, they've been speaking about it, but a few in Sri Lanka address this, right? They don't kind of relate the two together. Here it's all haram, don't even don't talk about it, right? I don't think they've been aware of the hadith you mentioned sometimes. So in the Sri Lankan context, as you made these videos, did you see responses where people were like, "Thank you for talking about this, my perception changed, now I understand it better"? Was that
yeah, I've had a lot of that, which is lovely in Sri Lanka. Like I've had that a lot for some of the vaginismus stuff. The thing is, in Sri Lanka, even talking about periods is a big deal, right? Like I think even seeing a hijabi talking about, like I did a menopause talk last Saturday. I had 40 women there, and they were like, "No one's ever spoken about it to us before." So I think sex is one thing, but even things that I find not that quite normal, people were appreciative of.
That's true. I think I remember like my aunties, or my mother, for a long time were not aware that some of the symptoms they were going through was due to menopause. They're like, okay, now what is this, and things like that. And of course, later you learn about it. But as a doctor, like now I see a lot of doctors on TikTok and social media, which was not common before, right? They did not think their job was to go and build awareness. So as a doctor, like how did you come to this? Because you continued. You were a stranded doctor. You did it maybe because you were bored at home. But like even after you started working, like what made you continue with that?
Because there's so much of misinformation out there, and people actually don't know. Like I did a video. Sometimes what I do is I see patients, and then I do the video about the patients in my clinic. Like that's often what happens. Like I'll see lots of fatty liver. Then I do a video on fatty liver or something like that. But I remember I did a video. I've had several couples come in where the woman in subfertility, and the woman has had loads of investigations, loads and like lap and dies, which are laparoscopic procedures. They're put to sleep and the camera's put in their stomach. These are not small things. And had clomiphen, so much invasive, sometimes dangerous things done to her. And the man's semen has never once been checked. And then it really gets me angry. And I have seen in my practice in Sri Lanka recently, in the last year, 3 couples where this has happened. And in one couple, it wasn't even they did all this to the woman, and they finally, after 2-3 years, checked the man, and it was his problem. And they ended up having IVF. And I'm just like, how can they put this woman through this? So I always say, it takes two. It takes two. And I have patients coming, and the lady has a file like this big of all the things done to her, and I'm like, can I have the semen analysis, please? Oh, we haven't done it. So, It's equal. If you look at the numbers of for subfertility, it's the same number of male problems is the same as female problems. You know, it's not just always the woman. It's the same number of male problems is the same as female problems. You know, it's not just always the woman. It's both of you. So it's a lack of passion about these things.
Was it a lack of awareness, or the man doesn't just want to do it?
I think a bit of both.
So, as a doctor, like, how did you then get to advise them? Like, how did you convince the man to?
Well, I say to them, what do you think? Like, how do you think a baby is formed? You know, I really do need an analysis. And sometimes they extend it, sometimes they don't.
Well, so isn't
that when I said I really need a semen analysis?
Aysha, isn't it also? It sounds like it's also like a systemic problem, right? Because we are lay people coming to the professional to get assessed. We're having infertility or subfertility issues. So the professional be like, you're cognizant and aware of like, hey, two people get together and that's how babies form. And you're there to like, see, like we need the semen analysis. Like, because where do you think in a system of like professional information dissemination, where is the issue in that case? Because I mean, I'm just a person. There's so much to learn about my body and all the issues that I have that I go to a professional for that advice, right? So where do you think that is? And honestly, if you feel like, well, Rushma, I want to answer this off call, that's fine. I'm just curious to understand systemically what can be done.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I haven't been in those consultations. For all I know, they have said to the husband, you need a semen analysis, because, you know, when we have proformas in clinics, they generally would say semen analysis. But I don't know if they decide not to go. I don't know.
So you're seeing them
sure.
after.
I don't know what my colleagues say.
Right.
I'm seeing them. The patients I've seen have been under investigation for a while and just come for like maybe another opinion or
got it.
You know, PCOS. I see a lot of PCOS. So my postgraduate research was on PCOS. So I see a lot of PCOS patients.
Hello.
When you say PCOS, yeah, Rushma also had to go through that. So, but as I understand, Rushma, you went through a lot before they actually diagnosed you with that, right? And that was also in India, not Sri Lanka.
No, so I got my diagnosis a while back, and I got diagnosed with endometriosis, actually, the label of endometriosis. Yeah. So, but I was very lucky because the doctors said that you just need to be on. I mean, I'm a mental health practitioner, a clinical psychologist, and I've worked with women with PCOS, PCOD, and endometriosis as well. And endometriosis, different stages of. So I was one of the fortunate few who had this opportunity to, like, they're like, okay, you have this thing on your right ovary, it's growing, let's do this, and we can, reduce the growth and bring it to zero. So when I went for my follow up, the growth was almost zero. And I faced some of the pain. But the challenges that I faced, and what I was telling Zara was, Aysha, in my research, what I noticed, a lot of the research also on women's health were also done by males, and then and there were things that women were actually saying. Like some of the ladies would say, this is what I feel. I feel like my period, I feel very tired. I feel like my teeth are getting yellow and that's my symptom of coming up. But every doctor would say, no, that's not a real thing. That's not a real problem. Like that, but I noticed shooting, like me, I used to notice a lot of shooting pains between my hip and the knee. It used to just go left and right, left and right. And then I figured, I was like, maybe my egg is being released from the right ovary this time, so that's why it's on this leg. And the next cycle, it's from the other thing. So I was trying to figure it out through my research, right? But everyone said that's not such a thing. There's no such thing like that. I went through many investigations in India, and we discovered that this is actually what's happening to you. I've been since Jan. I've been on treatment. Aysha, been feeling so good. It was a lady doctor who I consulted with, and she was like, "Oh, yeah, sure, this happened." So we can look at it in this way. This is atypical, this is typical, this is most spoken of, this is least spoken of. So yeah, it was like, so when Zara said you've done a lot of work with PCOS, I'm like, yeah, sure. Let's get her on. What would your advice be for resources? Because I struggle with finding resources and the right support here, and I'm based in Canada. Maybe it's just a city issue and resource distribution.
I think in terms of physical, there's not much. Online, there's a lot of things going on. Online, there are a lot of, like, I've seen various Instagram pages. There is a Sri Lankan Endometriosis Society, whose name now I can't remember. I think it's something Sri Lanka Endometriosis. There is a society which tries to support women. The thing is, it's still quite a taboo subject. Like, if you said, like, I remember saying, you know, oh, shall we start up a support group for PCOS women or a support group for fertility? The feedback I got from women, it's such a taboo. People will be really worried to come, and if they're unmarried, the mothers will be like, don't cook, and then people will know you have a gynae problem. So there was a little bit of pushback for like stuff like that.
Why
Like,
is PCOS
you know,
taboo? Like that's you can't help it, and
I know, but
it's not like
yeah,
a STI or something.
I think in the community, the concern is fertility. And when it comes to the world of arranged marriages, everything is hooked up.
and you know, to add on to that, Aisha, there was a time in 2022 and 23 where I was aiming to start, and I actually did start the group for PCOS, and I created a tiny workbook and stuff like that, Isha, and became online because it was COVID, right? One of the
I beg
things
your
was,
pardon? I didn't hear what you said.
it was online during COVID that I tried to start a PCOS
A
support
support group?
group. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
PCOS and mental health. So I had created a workbook for them to, you know, help track and see how things are happening for you and stuff like that. What I found interestingly was that a lot of the women, so some did end up coming, some didn't end up coming, which is the case. And then I'm curious, like, what stopped you from coming? Because when I put this out, it was like, thank God I have a place to talk and I am going to do it. I'm going to make it, right? It was like because they thought this is not a real problem to stress about. There are bigger issues than this. This was a theme I noticed amongst the women where it was like, you know, financial issues are real. Your relationship issues are real. But this body based issue, don't be a baby about it. Get over it. Just if you have the time, do it. It's not create the time for yourself and take care of you. Does that make sense? So this is a theme that I notice, and even with people that I'm working in my practice, it's like, but this is not a real thing. Every woman goes through this, right? So why should I make it a big deal? I shouldn't be what you call a totta baba, if you've heard of that. I shouldn't be a totta baba. I should be an adult about it. So this is something that I noticed in my practice, and when I try to like explore it further, these were some of the reasons. Some, not all, okay, some were logistical, but some were like, this is not a real thing. And I was someone
That's
like
very
that. I
interesting.
thought like this is normal until during COVID it got very, very bad. I was just
That is
normal.
interesting.
So this was something that I
I
noticed.
might, for example, I did a talk on infertility, self-fertility at the weekend. It was self-fertility and PCOS, there was a dietitian, and I had patients who I wanted to come, but they were so worried that people would see them and ask them and say, you know, oh, what were you doing there? Oh yeah, you don't have a baby, no? Like, you know, they just didn't come in the end, and they apologized. But, you know, I could see why. Like, you know, I actually did a slide on how to deal with things sensitively. Like, I actually said to the audience, what do you do if you have a friend who's going through self-fertility? What do you say to them and stuff? And I actually did a slide.
But is it necessarily connected that if you have PCOS, that you'll have fertility issues?
Not 100%, but PCOS is the number one cause of female fertility problems. So, but then Victoria Beckham is the most famous person with PCOS, and look how many children she has.
Yes, I was just going to say that, like, and for some reason, I don't know, maybe it's awareness, but a lot of women I know now say, okay, I have PCOS, and maybe it's like the statistics are increasing. Is it
Oh,
like?
for sure. But the reason the statistics are increasing also is that insulin resistance is increasing. Diabetes, PCOS is linked to insulin resistance, which is linked to diabetes. Insulin resistance is how your body reacts to insulin. So we know that insulin resistance is going up because people are not as active, weight gain, all those things. So we know that that's increasing. So we would also expect PCOS to increase.
Oh wow! So it is true that like if you have unhealthy lifestyle, you get that insulin resistance, and one of the features you might also get is PCOS.
So we're not sure if it's chicken or egg yet. We're not sure what's chicken, what's the egg, but definitely there's a link. We know that there's a link. It's not. Thing is, it's not fair to say to a woman who's got PCOS, well, it's because you're unhealthy. That's not the case at all. But we do know that insulin resistance, and if you have PCOS, the chance of you going to have diabetes is quite. The chance of you to have fatty liver is quite high. We know that all these things are linked. It's called the metabolic egg syndrome. So it's PCOS, fatty liver, diabetes, they're all connected.
So can people, is it fair to tell someone, okay, you have PCOS, why don't you just lose weight and you'll be fine?
Well, it's hard because losing weight when you have PCOS is harder. It's a lot harder.
Yeah.
It's not like anyone else going, yeah, just lose some weight. Like how? What? How? It's not that easy. So, you can't just go lose weight. You need to have, guidance on how to do that. But also, PCOS has been around for a long time. So even in times of starvation, like in the Great Depression in America in the 1930s, when there was no food, people were still having PCOS. So there's definitely like a lifestyle aspect, but it's not the be and end all. There's a lot more to it than just eating food.
So refreshing to hear that, Aisha, because I've heard the thing about Denghari or Mahatavadi, you have to lose weight. And this was a time, in the last 2.5 years, my lifestyle hasn't been great. But before that, was pretty good. Zara was like, don't you do your yoga and stuff anymore? Okay, I was like, I used to, but not anymore. I still had PCOS, and I remember that I had a trainee with me, and she had PCOS as well. She was 4 foot. She's 4'10", petite. She's about 46, 42 to 46 kilos. She's just the right weight, the right everything. And then the doctor's advice was, oh, you'll have to lose some more weight. And we were like, what weight can she, like, shall we take her organs out? Which organ do you think we should get out? Just so that the weight would come down. It was tough. So that's what, you don't really, there's a
So what advice would you give?
condition.
I've heard advice from intermittent fasting out curing fasting would cure out PCOS, PCOS, diet, something to even taking metformin maybe. Like what advice? There's a lot of like wrong advice out there. As a professional, what advice do you tell to women who are suffering from PCOS and like are looking for something?
So I say the most important thing with PCOS is if you're not having regular periods, after 3 months, go to a doctor to get some tablets to get a bleed. That's the most important thing first, okay? Because you need to make sure your womb lining is being shed every 3 months. That's number one. Number two would be make sure you're not diabetic, because a lot of people with PCOS are diabetic. So get that checked and things. And then it's trying to figure out what you can do. So I would say start the lifestyle first. So start the strength training, start eating, half your plate veg, quarter carb and quarter protein, yeah? So if you're having enough protein, enough veg, do those things. Strength training is another amazing thing to do when you have PCOS. It really does help. Strength training works by increasing muscle mass. Muscle mass helps take blood sugar out of the bloodstream. So strength training, eating properly, getting withdrawal bleeds. And then stress management. Stress management is very important. High cortisol levels, all of that is linked to PCOS. So getting good quality sleep, doing things like mindfulness to make sure your stress levels come down. All these things can make a difference. Say for example, you would have a baby and you're doing all these things and things aren't working, then you definitely should go to the doctor and see what other options are there. They're like certain supplements, metformin. So metformin is not evidence-based, but anecdotally we all love to use it because we've seen it work in our practice. But the big trials go, oh, no, the big trials say no, it doesn't work. But then but we've seen it. So there's some things we do as doctors because we've seen it work, yeah. So metformin, and then sometimes women need drugs to help them, for example, conceive. So, things like Clomid, letrozole. Again, please only do these with medical advice. If you take them yourself, you can get into heaps of trouble. It can be very dangerous. But you do need to, if you have under medical supervision, they're fine. But under medical supervision. The other thing about PCOS is the pill. So we use the pill not to treat the cause of PCOS. We use the pill to help with the symptoms of PCOS. So it's like, but then, so they, now I know on the internet's like, oh, why are they just giving them a pill? But they can really help with the symptoms. But you just have to be aware it's looking after the symptoms and not the cause. So it's like putting a plaster on. But, if you do, say for example, you're very hairy or you have really bad acne, the pill can really help with these symptoms. But then you also do the lifestyle stuff as well to, take ownership of the problem too.
And finally, Aysha, I just want to know, like, when it comes to Sri Lankan women, that is our context anyway, like, I've read that a lot of diseases, even like nervous system issue diseases, affect women because either that they don't take it seriously, there's so much to handle in life, a lot of things to juggle, so much stress, right? What can they do to like focus on wellness, taking care of themselves, both physically, sexually, mentally? Like, how would you say is like an ideal lifestyle? Well, not ideal, but a good lifestyle that they can follow,
I think it's
focus on.
realizing that we are living longer, but you want to see how we are living. So if you want to know, like, you work out at 40 because you want to be walking at 60. So it's just realizing that what we do as in our 30s and our 40s has such an impact on later life. So like I say to some of my older patients, if you have, they're like, yeah, we're old. I'm like, yeah, but if you have a heart attack or stroke and you die instantly, then well done to you. You've had a good life, you've had a stroke and heart attack and you died. But sadly, it doesn't happen to lots of people. They have a heart attack and a stroke, and then their quality of life just drops. And they're alive for 5-10 years afterwards, and it's an awful quality of life. But they're still alive. So to avoid that, that's what you must think. I read a meme recently, like I'm working. The reason I go to the gym is that when I'm 65, I'll be dancing at my child's wedding, not sitting there in a wheelchair. So it's realizing that you have to fill, you have to pour, you can't pour from an empty cup. Like honestly, you cannot pour if you're giving and giving and giving. And the mental load for women is so high. Like we have to juggle everything. And now we juggle work as well. We juggle work, we juggle home, we juggle the home, we juggle relationships. That's, that is why women have higher rates of autoimmune disease than men. One of the reasons is that we're under high levels of stress all the time. So, it's just trying to realize that no one will look after, at the end of the day, no one will look after you but yourself. And I think that's really we have to sort of.
I just want to add actually a special note for like Muslim women. Like if I look at my family, like a lot of the women have like vitamin D issues, maybe not enough sunlight, osteoporosis and just fatty liver and all diabetes, like all sorts as they get older and older, like it's. And you would see like a similar person maybe in a Western country even, same age. Like my grandmother would famously say, look at Tina Turner, she looks so much younger. Even at the same age, but she looks way younger than me, right? So why do we not focus on this for our community as well? I mean, we just deteriorate after a certain point.
I think it's because I think our Muslim communities, our food is a big thing, right? What we do is eat. Because like the other communities do other things for fun, we eat, right? Like we eat when we're sad, we eat when we're happy. Like when someone dies, we have loads of fun. When we get married, we have loads of fun. And we're like, it's, we live, we live to eat. That's a big thing. And also, physical activity is just there's not much of it, especially for women. Like they do, like I always say, you're not old, come on, let's walk, let's do this, let's do that. And also if you think about it, if you think like, for example, your grandmother, she would have got married young, had children young, and would have been a grandmother maybe in her 40s.
Yeah.
So I'm 41, my daughter's 8, but the generation above. So my mother obviously is a bit different. As you know, my mom's a bit different. But like, for example, my mother-in-law had her grandchildren in her 40s. So they assume that they're okay, that's it, we're in our 40s, your grandmother now,
taking care of your grandkids.
Yeah, but I think it's changing. Like I had women at my menopause when I did the course on last Saturday, there were women in their strength training in their 50s. So it is changing, like, but we have to push it. Like we need to push it as a community, that we need to start training. Like if you're a family of osteoporosis, make them do strength training. They're women-only gyms. Make them join, It's really important. Like, we now know that bone density and muscle mass can still be made after you're 50 and 60 if you do the strength training. So,
And also, like,
such
one thing that can be added is you're not going to look masculine. This is, you just do strength training and you're not going to bulk up. When you say strength
that is a
training, we're not
concern.
talking about 65
Arnold
kg lift. It's
Schwarzenegger.
just, yeah, exactly. Because I see this a lot, Aisha. I'm so glad we're talking about it, because so when I work with Muslim women, okay, and we talk about, because this there's a certain degree as a psychologist that you can do in therapy with session, and a lot of things are also to do with your physical movement, right? Physical movement and exposure to nature, and activating your five senses. So when we talk about, like, hey, a nature walk, even 5 minutes or 2 minutes or 12 minutes, just to build it up, right? And talk about strength training and even yoga. Oh my God, what will people think? Nan posh, nan posha pakren. I think it's not. So there are times in session we have a good laugh, and I'm like, no, other posh illa. It's so basic, right? Because
so fun.
sometimes the pockets of communities that you're working with, some are very receptive to, like, oh, body movement, and you go walking, and it's like, I remember
But
one
Candy has so
person.
many nice places to go walking.
Yeah, it
True,
does.
it does.
But
It
a
does.
lot of women don't step out of the house. Like, I
No.
had a grand aunt whose COVID restrictions meant nothing to her. She was like, this is life as usual. I was like, how?
I really don't know how they do.
Yeah, so these are those, like the social stigmas of moving and wanting to look good when you're older. I've heard things like, well, are you an actress, a celebrity? It's not needed. Why should you look so good? Yaarukku neenga alaha, you're trying to be beautiful. It's like, no. I said, no, sometimes it's really, really, they really struggle with it, because sometimes they have the battle of, I want to be well, but now I don't know what my husband and my husband's family is going to say, right? And sometimes you get spouses who have, the sort of bordering on morbid jealousy. So they think that she has somebody. That's why she's trying to look nice and trying to look healthy. And sometimes it's layer after layer after layer. And you're like, I'm sorry, let's try to do something within the room then. And that's how you start it's tough when you look at the social stigmas of trying to get healthy. And that reminded me of a quote meme I read I think couple of months ago. It says, you will do anything for your family. You'll do anything for your family. You'll die for your family. You'll do all of this. But you're not trying to get healthy for your family or move your body for your family. It was
You
very,
die for your family, but will you live for them? That's what I read as well.
will you
You die for your
move
family.
your body, exercise for your family? No, not
I
so much.
feel my family are from Kandy as well. So I feel in Kandy, I think it's often a bit more conservative than in Colombo.
Mm-hmm.
In Colombo, yeah, so like my family back in Kandy, I think have very similar perceptions and ideals. For the concern about bulking up and things, for a woman
It's
to
a
bulk up is
global.
very you have to be lifting some massive weight and having loads of protein and loads of creatinine. Like, it's so hard for women to bulk up. What we're doing is just, if you can get up to your body weight, you're just going to be toned. That's it, just toned. With regard to the exercise, it's kind of pushing it that exercise is not to look good. Exercise is to be healthy. And I think
Healthy.
trying to get that in the community, it's not. So actually, things are changing. So I'm starting. I've started my diploma in lifestyle medicine,
Oh, nice.
and my colleague who has already finished. She's secretary of the Sri Lankan Lifestyle Medicine Society. We both went to Nalimia, which is obviously the big Muslim university, and we spoke to 200, maybe 60 or 70, like a significant number of alimas, to talk to them
Mm,
about food and lifestyle and exercise, and we did that. So
lovely.
like, Alhamdulillah, that was really good. So Dr. Fawz organized that, and we both went. So, things are changing. But thing is, it's things what you said, like bringing it to the room. Like that's so true. Like bringing exercise to the room. And so, for example, in lockdown, what we did was that we, as my cousins from Kandy, and then so we're like from villages around Kandy, so different villages around Kandy, and then cousins in Australia and the Qatar. We did like an online video of dancing. So it was this woman called Shonora Hill, and it was great because if you say to Muslim women, yeah, you have to go out, but even for me to go out in the evening for a walk, where do I go? It's not that safe in Colombo either, is it? Like it's sometimes physically hard to get out in the evening on you. If you've got children, how do you do it? But like for example, a dance at home, just pressing a YouTube video, it makes such a difference. So just make
Yeah,
things accessible,
Yeah.
even just a minute.
even just.
It's true.
Thank you so much, Aisha,
Thank you.
for bringing this subject to the fore and making popularizing it and doing it in a way that is fun to understand, and also you're using your religious knowledge and background also to appeal to a certain section of society which doesn't usually get the message also. So that is a
Yeah.
lot of I think service that you're doing, and thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you
very much for
so much.
inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
Hi, I'm Rushma
Zara here.
again. So if you like what you watch on this channel, please follow us for more, because we are going to be bringing you a lot of stories from women in Sri Lanka who can inspire you, empower you, and motivate you. So to support us, please do.
Subscribe, like, and comment on our channel.
Thank you.
Thank you.